He was the most celebrated athlete on earth, unstoppable, untouchable. But behind closed doors, something was unraveling, a darkness no trophy could silence. And when the mirror finally cracked, it revealed a truth more terrifying than failure. Rain hammered down on the glass windows of the Lisbon training complex. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered above a nearly empty gym. A young Cristiano Ronaldo stood alone, sweat dripping from his brow, lips tight, eyes burning. It was past midnight. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. But Ronaldo was still sprinting, still shooting, still punishing himself for every missed opportunity in training earlier that day. He replayed the coach's words over and over. Too weak, too skinny, too flashy, no discipline. Each insult felt like a blade, carving purpose into his bones. Outside, the world mocked him. Inside, he was molding a weapon. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. Pain, hunger, exhaustion, none of it mattered. All that mattered was proving them wrong. He dropped for another 100 push-ups, knuckles bruise and raw against the concrete floor. In the corner of the gym, an old janitor paused to watch him, eyes wide, unblinking. He whispered under his breath, "This is not normal." Ronaldo looked possessed, more machine than boy. A voice inside him screamed louder than any crowd ever would. "You are nothing until you make them believe." His fingers trembled on the dumbbell. Blood stained the tape around his wrist. Still, he did not stop. He could not stop. The obsession was louder than the pain, louder than the silence of being doubted. The janitor stepped back slowly, unnerved. Then the light suddenly shut off. Total darkness. The sound of weights clanking echoed in the void. A shadow moved across the far wall. But Ronaldo did not flinch. He was not scared of the dark. He had trained in it. He had lived in it. And deep in the blackness, a voice spoke behind him. Cold, clear, deliberate. "How far are you willing to go?" Ronaldo turned. The shadow stepped closer. Its face familiar. Too familiar. It was him, but twisted. Older. Hardened. Eyes empty. Smiling without warmth. "You wanted to become a legend," the voice said. "Now pay the price." Ronaldo's heart pounded. His breath grew shallow. The gym felt colder. His reflection vanished from the mirror, and something else stood in its place. The mirror shimmered like disturbed water. What stared back was not flesh and blood. It wore his face, but its eyes were hollow, soulless. It was a version of him stripped of mercy, joy, and pain. A perfect machine. A product of sacrifice. "You built me," the figure whispered. "You fed me with every skipped meal, every missed birthday, every hour alone." Cristiano's breath caught in his throat. The weight of silence pressed against his chest like stone. He took a step closer. The reflection did not mimic him. It smiled wider and spoke with venom. "You traded your childhood for applause. You bled for cheers you can no longer hear." The gym around him flickered in and out like a faulty reel of film. Sounds warped. The thud of his heartbeat became thunder. His past echoed from the walls. "Missed again. Ronaldo. You think you're better than the others. He'll burn out before 20. Each voice stabbed into his memory like knives. He clutched his ears, but the voices grew louder, faster, relentless. He fell to his knees, panting. The lights returned in a violent flash, and the figure was now beside him, kneeling, eye to eye. "You wanted the world," it said softly, "but the world took your soul in return." The floor beneath him began to tremble. The trophies on the shelves shook violently. Glass cracked. The gym started to split, walls peeling back to reveal a stadium filled with shadows. Thousands of figures stared down at him from the stands. Not cheering, not smiling, silent, judging. Every face was someone he had left behind. His mother, teammates, old friends, even himself at 10 years old, wide-eyed, still innocent, still human. "You are not like them anymore," the shadow said. "You do not belong to yourself. You belong to us now." Ronaldo tried to scream, but his voice failed. He stood slowly, every bone in his body trembling. He looked to the exit, but it was gone. Only a tunnel remained, lined with golden light. At the far end, he could hear the faint sound of a crowd rising. Applause. But it was hollow, unnatural, like the clatter of bones. He moved forward, drawn by the sound, each step heavier than the last. The golden light began to dim. The walls grew narrower. The applause distorted, turning into whispers. Not enough. Never enough. You will die chasing it. His chest tightened. His fingers clawed at the wall for balance. And then, a hand reached out from the shadow. It gripped his shoulder with icy fingers, pulling him back, holding him still. Ronaldo turned to see the figure again. Closer now, eyes burning like fire beneath ash. You were not made to be happy, it said. You were made to be remembered. The hand squeezed tighter, and Ronaldo's leg buckled. The tunnel collapsed behind him in a storm of noise and darkness, and he realized he was not chasing glory anymore. He was running from something far worse. The sound of collapsing walls echoed like war drums. The light at the end of the tunnel blinked out. Ronaldo fell to the ground, swallowed by pitch black. His breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. He reached out, but there was nothing to hold on to. Just the cold, the dark, and the voice. Now you understand, it whispered. You did not rise. You were consumed. A sickening hum filled the air, low and pulsing like a heartbeat. He was no longer in the gym. He was somewhere else. A vast chamber, endless, walls lined with giant screens. On every screen, him, scoring goals, raising trophies, celebrating. But the eyes in the clips were lifeless, empty, like he had become a ghost in his own skin. A prisoner of perfection. He turned away, but the screens followed. He covered his ears. The cheers pierced through, distorted, like screams beneath the surface. Is this what you wanted? The voice asked again. To be remembered, even if it meant forgetting who you were. Suddenly, a screen cracked, a jagged line splitting through a memory. His first goal was sporting. He stepped toward it. The crack widened. Behind it, a different image flickered. A hospital room. His father's face. Pale, still, alone. Ronaldo staggered back. More screens began to shatter, each one replaced by something he had buried. A missed call from his mother. A letter from a childhood friend, never answered. A young teammate, benched for weeks while Ronaldo trained through injury. Sacrifices. All of them. All real. All forgotten. The chamber vibrated with every memory breaking loose. The air grew heavier, harder to breathe. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest. Tears blurred his vision. But there was no relief. No escape. Only the question, repeated again and again. How far are you willing to go? Then, a sound. Something new. Not a voice. Not a cheer. But the soft rustle of footsteps behind him. He froze, afraid to turn, afraid to see what was coming. The footsteps stopped inches from his back. A shallow breath, not his own. Then a whisper, colder than before. You are not done yet. A hand reached down, touched his shoulder again, and this time it pulled him upward, forcing him to stand, to face what was waiting. Ahead, the floor split open, revealing a staircase of gold and smoke. And at the top, a door, massive, glowing. But behind it, he could hear something worse than silence, worse than pain. A low, guttural sound. Breathing. Something alive. Something waiting. Something that had been watching his entire life. And now, it wanted him. He stood at the base of the staircase. Each golden step pulsed beneath his feet, as if alive. The smoke coiled upward like fingers, wrapping around his legs. The air reeked of metal, sweat, and something ancient, decay masked by glory. Ronaldo's muscles tensed, instinct screaming to turn back. But there was nowhere else to go. He began to climb. Slowly, each step sent vibrations through the chamber, like distant drums warning of a coming storm. With every step upward, the breathing behind the door grew louder, more jagged, like something vast and broken was gasping to stay alive. His heartbeat matched the rhythm, steady, then faster, faster. At the halfway point, the staircase shifted beneath him. Gold peeled away, revealing jagged stone beneath. It cut into his bare feet, warm with blood. He pressed forward, because he had to, because turning back meant confronting the mirror again, the hollow version of himself, the machine he had become. The door loomed closer now. Its surface shimmered with images, moments, the birth of his son, the roar of a stadium, the tears after a loss, the fury, the hunger, the obsession, all flashing like a slideshow of identity, pieces of a man torn and rebuilt for the world to worship. Then the breathing stopped. Silence. Absolute. Not peace. Not calm. The kind of silence that arrives before something terrible wakes. He reached the top. The door towered above him, pulsing with heat. He raised a trembling hand. His palm hovered inches from the surface. It was ice cold, colder than anything he had ever felt. And then the door cracked open. Not wide, just enough. Enough for something to slip through. A whisper. It was not in a language he understood, but he felt it. Inside his skull. Inside his bones. It was not a word. It was a command. A summons. His hand moved on its own. Fingers pushed the door open farther. A sliver of blinding white light poured out. Blinding, but empty, like staring into the center of a star that had already died. He took one step forward, and the floor vanished. He plunged into the light. No ground, no sky, just endless brightness, stretching forever. But he was not alone. Far ahead, something moved. Not fast, not slow, something impossibly large, covered in cloaks of torn jerseys, medals, golden boots, stitched together like armor. Its back was turned, but it was waiting, breathing, and it knew he was there. He tried to speak, but no sound came. He took another step toward it. The thing stirred. One giant foot dragged backward. It began to turn, piece by piece. The air around him fractured like glass with every inch it rotated. And finally, it faced him. Cristiano froze. It was his face, but stretched over something monstrous. Eyes black, mouth stitched into a permanent smile. Its chest opened slowly, revealing a hollow void. Inside that void, trophies, photos, hands reaching out, grasping, trapped, screaming silently. Then, the figure stepped forward. One word broke through the silence. One word that split the light like thunder. Replace. The word echoed through the void. Replace. It did not feel like a command. It felt like a sentence. A judgment passed down from something far older than fame. Ronaldo's body locked. Muscles seized. His breath caught, strangled by invisible hands. The thing, this twisted version of himself, tilted its head. The stitched smile stretched wider. Its black eyes pulsed with hunger. Not for food, not for blood, but for everything. Every title, every goal, every second of adoration. It wanted to devour his very being, and wear his legacy like a second skin. The stitched thing raised its arms. From beneath its sleeves spilled rivers of broken boots, torn contracts, and the torn-out pages of sports history books. Each scrap bore his name. All of them faded, all of them vanishing. He reached down to pick one up. The moment his fingers touched the paper, it turned to ash. He turned to run, but there was no direction, no up, no down, only it, and its voice, now louder, inside his bones, inside his skull. You chase eternity. Now eternity chases you. The creature's chest cavity began to pulse. Ronaldo felt it pulling at him, not physically, spiritually. His memories flickered at the edges of his vision. His mother waving goodbye. His first night alone in Lisbon. His son in the stands, clapping. All of them began to drain into the void behind the stitched creature's chest. He screamed, but there was no sound, no resistance. The pull became stronger. His arms stretched toward the thing against his will. It stepped closer. Its shadow covered him, darker than death. The stitched mouth began to open. Not wide, just enough. Enough to whisper again. You built a god. Now become the ghost that feeds it. He clenched his fists, trying to hold on, but his feet slid forward. The light dimmed. The whiteness peeled away to gray, to black, to nothing. And as he was dragged forward, inch by inch, his reflection began to vanish. From the mirrors, from the memory, from the world, and something else, something colder, was stepping into his place. His fingertips scraped against emptiness. No surface, no ground, just an infinite void pulling harder with each breath he took. Behind him, the stitched creature loomed taller now, its legs stretching like roots through time, its arms opening like wings of woven torment. The hollow chest yawned wider, a vortex of memory and identity. Ronaldo's face twisted in pain, not from the pull, but from the unmaking. He felt years being peeled away. Not just the goals, the games, the glories, but the hours, the private moments, the humanity, the boy in Madeira who kicked oranges through alleyways. Gone. The teenager who cried alone in his bunk at Sporting. Gone. The son who once held his father's shaking hand. Gone. The void fed hungrily, grinding his soul into static. The thing stepped forward again. Its stitched smile trembled. Its face began to reshape. His jawline, his brow, even the scar above his eye. It was becoming him, but not the man. The myth, the god, perfect, merciless, eternal, a version the world demanded. Not the one who bled, not the one who broke. And as a real Ronaldo was dragged inch by inch toward oblivion, a stadium began to fade into form around them. Towering, blinding, full, crowds roaring with the sound of a billion screens. But none of them saw him. They saw it, wearing his jersey, raising his arms, smiling the smile he no longer owned. And the sound of their cheers was not joy. It was hunger, insatiable. Their chants shook the sky. Cristiano, Cristiano, Cristiano. But it was not a name anymore. It was a curse. It echoed across timelines, consuming even the future. Ronaldo tried to scream, to claw back toward the world, to remind them, to warn them, but his voice was taken, his image stolen, his legacy rewritten, while he watched from the inside of a cage made from the bones of his own ambition. The final step came. He crossed the threshold. His fingers clutched the edge of the stitched chest. The vortex inside spun with fury, and then a face appeared in the storm. Not the monster, not the god, a boy, 10 years old, big eyes, barefoot, holding a deflated ball, whispering something, too quiet to hear. But Ronaldo knew what he said. He remembered now. He remembered why he started. And as the stitched creature prepared to seal the void, as the last sliver of his soul dangled over the edge, Ronaldo looked the monster in its black eyes, and for the first time, it blinked, just once. Then, the light snapped to black, and the cheering stopped. The silence hung like a guillotine. Total. Final. Then, Ronaldo opened his eyes. He was lying on the cold floor of the gym. No smoke. No stitched reflection. Only the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. His heart thundered in his chest, drenched in sweat. But something had changed. Not in the room. In him. He stumbled to his feet, walked to the mirror, stared at his reflection. It was him. But he saw everything now. The fatigue behind the eyes. The ghost in the posture. He had not been chased by a monster. He had been chasing himself. The version the world demanded. Perfect. Unstoppable. Inhuman. And in doing so, he had nearly destroyed the boy who loved the game. He collapsed to the bench and sat in silence. No phone. No press. No spotlight. Just a man. Worn, but awake. Later that night, he called his son. Not for a photo. Not for a post. Just to hear his voice. The boy laughed, telling him about school. About missing a penalty in PE. Ronaldo smiled. Not the practice one. A real smile. He told his son something he had never said before. It is all right to fail. There was a pause. Then joy. As if something precious had been restored. The next morning, he trained. Not to break records. Not to silence critics. But to feel the ball on his foot. To remember why he started. To remember the joy. The obsession that built the legend did not vanish. But now, it had limits. He had limits. And he chose to honor them. Because a legend who forgets he is human becomes a statue. Admired. But hollow. Forgotten by those who truly matter. The world may cheer for gods. But it remembers men. Flawed. Real. and brave enough to step back from the edge. The price of greatness is not worth the cost of your soul, and the boy within must never be sacrificed to feed the myth.